Welcome to AgriMinds, the podcast where we explore the intersections of personal growth and professional success in the ag industry. I'm Kacee, your host. Thank you for joining me as we dive in to the different strategies and insights that will help you level up your life and career. From mental health to leadership development, we're going to cover it all. So sit back and get ready to grow with AgriMinds. Welcome to another episode on the AgriMinds podcast. Today I have Ashley Runholt with me, also known as the female agronomist. And today we're going to dive into all things working ag retail, being a female in the agriculture industry, personal, professional development, balancing work life. This is probably going to be a really great episode. I hope we stay on task. Not too many rabbit holes, but Ashley, welcome to the AgriMinds podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'll give a little bit of a background of who I am and how I came out to Southwest Minnesota. So I grew up as what I call a retail brat. So my dad is a retail manager in Northwest Ohio. And so I'm the youngest of three girls. My boss is being a creep and looking in the window.
Welcome to ag retail.
So I'm the youngest of three girls, and my dad kind of adopted me as his son. And so I've just have done all of the things since I was just a wee little girl, and I'd go to work with him as much as he would let me and tolerate me. So I kind of grew up in ag retail, and then I started working for him when I was 16 in Northwest Ohio. And then from there, I kind of went to college for culinary school, decided I did not want to be in a kitchen all day. And then dad called me one day. I was like $40 short of my car payment, like a month before. And I called dad and I was like, hey, can you send me $40? Like, can you deposit $40 in my checking account? So that way I can make my car payment in a month. And he was like, no, but I need your help this weekend spreading lime. So I'll pay for your gas to get up here. And then I'll pay you $10 an hour, which was a lot of money then. And then I'll pay for your gas to get back. And so I went up there that week and I was like, all right, well, I guess this is what we're going to do. So I drove up there, and then after that, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do what I just got done doing again. So I moved back home, and then went to school for ag business. And then that was summer. I got an internship with Helena, and I worked up in fruits and vegetables, in kind of Conklin, Spartan area. So like, if you hold your hand out, it's the upper left side of your hand is their fruits and vegetables country. And that was really super cool. And got a lot of experience in insect ID and disease ID management. So I worked up there for that summer. And then the next year I called the recruiter for Helena and I was like, hey, I would love to do another one. And he's like, I've got the perfect place for you. You're going to be on just outside of cowboy country. You're fitting great there. And we're going to send you to Minnesota. And I thought it was Wisconsin. So I was like, oh, that's not that far. And I looked on the map and I was like, oh my God, that's like 14 hours away from my family. So I drove all the way out there, and my mom on the map, because like we had to use Google Map, or not Google Maps, it was MapQuest at that time. So like I didn't even MapQuest anything. I just grabbed an atlas, and my mom was like, do you have directions on where you're going? And I was like, no, I'm just gonna like head west on the interstate because I think it's only like 2 turns. So I literally hopped on 90, like 80-90 split in Northwest Ohio, and drove all the way out on 80-90 for like 14 hours. And it's literally three turns once you're like out of Chicago. So anyway, I'm kind of a fly by your seat person. And I loved it when I came out here, and I went home that 4th of July weekend, and I told dad, I was like, I think I want to move out there. Like, I think my college credits will transfer. I think I can get my internship extended. And if all else fails, I know I can get a job bartending again. So like, but I really love it out there. It's like the heart of ag. So he was like, line up all of that stuff and we'll tell your mom later. So I did. And that's kind of how I ended up out here. And then since I've been here, I worked for John Deere for about 2 years because I hadn't done anything outside of ag retail. And I thought I was in my mid-20s. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do something different, I might as well try it now. And I did really like it. I did GPS, and like at that time they called on AMS consultants. So I worked on that, and I did install, troubleshooting, and then training for farmers with that. And it was a pretty big implement dealer. So we did like a traveling tech day type of thing. So we'd go to different states and put on these huge educational programs for farmers to know how the displays work. And like just basically like, here's a recap of settings and where the buttons are and all of that stuff. So we did that for about a month and a half, and then they wanted me to relocate, and I can't relocate because my husband farms, and we had been married by that time. So I said, I can't relocate. So I got another job at kind of a wholesale retail location, and that wasn't a gig for me. So I left there, and then I've been at my current job for about 8 years now, and we're just a little small ag retail location, and it's super awesome and a lot of fun here. So, and it's like a 2-mile drive for commute, so I can't beat it.
Oh, okay. I'm really excited because I think we've only had 2 or 3 other actual employees. Everybody else on the podcast has been an entrepreneur. And I've said this in several episodes, like I've got to get more people who are employees or employed by somebody that's not family or like on the family farm. And so I'm so excited to hear this. What I really want to just dive into, to be honest with you, like, let's just cut to the chase. Like, so I really want to just dive into like, what has your journey looked like? What kind of personal and professional development have you experienced both at the place that you're at now, and any insights or aha pivotal moments that you've had?
So I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion. I have not graduated college, and I will never graduate from college. So I've transferred a handful of times, and if I did graduate, I would have in total, it'd be 2 bachelor's degrees. But the reason why I haven't finished is because I've got like non-core credits that won't transfer from in between the schools. And I'm like, I'm not taking English 101 for the 4th time. I'm not doing it. So kind of the unpopular opinion is I personally don't think that that it's appropriate to necessarily say we have to have an associate's degree, or we have to have a bachelor's degree to be a good agronomist or a good employee. And I think that the industry itself is going to kind of shift because there's so much pushback right now with college, and I don't want somebody to have to be $40,000 in debt just to say, here's this piece of paper. I graduated from college and I still realistically know about the same as somebody that's worked 2 years or 4 years at an ag retail location or anywhere else as an agronomist. So my unpopular opinion is that I think that we should start taking away the college education requirement, and work requirement in my mind is more substantial than college education. But as far as like personal development for me, there's my work here is super supportive of, and I'll give them a shout out. My boss, my GM would be really proud. So where I work is Cottonwood Co-op Oil Company, and we're the world's first oil company, like our oil co-op. So it's kind of like a cool tagline that he always says at meetings. But there's a lot of really cool heritage there, I think. And they're a super supportive company with any classes, any education that you want to take. They're 100% on board. And it's so nice to have a company that is that supportive and willing to kind of say, yeah, you want to go to a class, how much does it cost? And we'll cover it. That's really crucial and really important. So to me, if I was looking for a job, especially in ag retail, because we're so short staffed in ag retail, I would be very nitpicky and I would say, okay, how do you guys feel about personal development, or professional personal development, to make sure that my mental health is okay here, and to make sure that I can handle the kind of mental workload, because it's long hours that we put in. It's not an easy job. Like, I love my job here and I love ag retail. It's such a cool passion of mine. Um, and there's so much variety in what we get to do that it kind of keeps everybody on their toes, so to speak. So I really love the industry and kind of all of the pieces that put the puzzles together. One of my favorite personal development classes that I've been to is I got to go to the Women's and Ag Business Conference, would have been 3 or 4 years ago, because it was pre-COVID. So it was probably 2019, 2020 that we went. And that was really cool. And then my actual first favorite, now that I've thought about it, is without a doubt, 100%. Mosaic puts on this class called Ag College. And if anybody out there gets a chance to go to that seminar, it is 100% the best seminar I have ever been to. It was such a cool seminar, and it was just personal professional development. I mean, it was just so neat, and it's awesome. I am kind of a social busybody, so like I am 100% for meeting new people. Like I love hearing other people's stories, and how they got to where they got to, and I just really like the networking part of business meetings. And there's so many people that I've met in those meetings that either one, remember me as a little girl because dad used to take me to meetings, or they know dad personally and they don't know my married name, or they don't know me because of my married name. But I'm like, so I'll do like one liners, be like, do you know Wayne Knopfsinger? And then they'll be like, you're kidding. And I'm like, I'm the youngest daughter. And they're like, oh, you're that little one. And I was like, yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. The biggest,
I get that all the time.
it's so cool though. Like, it's such a cool, I mean, I'm 14 hours away from anybody that should know me or know my background. And I'll bet you I've met 25 people that personally know my dad in ag. It's just such a small, tight-knit community. Like, no matter where you're at in the country, it's just so small, such a small base community.
Okay.
So those are kind of like the professional development classes that I've got.
I have so many questions. You threw me for a loop there when you said that you didn't graduate college. I want to go back to this and touch on a couple things. So, and I think you're right. In my mind, and I think a lot of other people, in order to be quote unquote successful or to even have certain types of jobs, you have to have an education, you have to have a license, you have to, be certified in certain things. And I love when people challenge that, because for me, for example, college helped me decide what I liked and what I didn't like. But I think the reason why I got there was because, like I mentioned earlier, I've done some internships. I went to Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois for 2 years, which was a community college. You can get your associate's degree there. And so I went because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to do ag, but I didn't really know what or how or anything. And so my dad's like, if you're going to go, at least you're an hour or so from home, get a degree, something that we can write off and you can utilize back here on the farm, and you can take some knowledge and bring it back to us. So I did that. And then all of my friends ended up either going to Carbondale, Southern Illinois, or to U of I in Champaign. And I couldn't afford Champaign, so I went down to Carbondale. And so I followed all my friends down there. I got a degree in agriculture business economics, but every single year both at Lakeland and at SIU, I did an internship, and that was the best thing that I could have ever done because it helped me realize what I wanted to do and what I didn't. Like, I thought that I wanted to operate a grain elevator. I had seen it done. I had a family member that did it, and I thought it was so cool. And on the episode right before this with Matt Bennett, we talked about like owning and operating a grain elevator. He was my first boss. And so I went and did an internship with him. And I realized I don't want anything to do with a grain elevator. Markets make my eyes roll to the back of my head. I don't want to talk puts and calls. I like can't breathe. Like, I don't want anything to do with a grain elevator. But I learned so much, and I'm glad that I got my foot in the door. So then I took it one step further and thought, okay, well, maybe I do want to be in ag retail or some kind of co-op. I don't know. So I went up to Minnesota, worked for Cargill for the summer, and I realized I hate walking fields. I don't want jack to do with crop scouting. I thought horrible. I did. Listen, listen, I felt a lot of guilt and shame around that because I was a farmer's daughter, and I thought I had to be passionate about everything related to farming. And listen, I don't have passion for scouting for insects. I just don't. It's not my thing. And I'm fine with it. I own it. Some people live it up. You probably love it. It's not me. It's not my thing. I'll drive the four-wheeler up and down the field, but
I hate seed. Absolutely hate it. Like I despise seed. If I could never
we're even.
I just hate seed. It's just not a thing of mine.
But, I went through all these different internships. It helped me understand what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And I think that gave me the leg up compared to someone like my husband, who went straight to a 4-year university, did all the things, got a crap ton of student loan debt. He did nothing but have a really expensive party, basically. And he said he hated going to school. He didn't enjoy it. He didn't get out of it what he wanted to. And even now today, I mean, he's finally starting to utilize his degree. He's like, I wish I wouldn't have gone to school. And so you look at the two of us who, both had two very different experiences and the outcome of it. And I absolutely advocate for people to do the work prior to going off to college or to a university, or, do an internship right out of high school, take some time to work in the real world, job shadow, at least have conversations with people that you think you might want to do that job with, and, get a feel for those things prior to going and spending 4 years of your life doing something you turns out you don't want to do, and have a crap ton of debt to go along with it. But like I said, in my mind, had I not done those internships, I would have gone through to a career. I would have gone and gotten certified to do something that I didn't want to do. And, as coming from, an agronomist perspective, did you have to go through to get a CCA or anything like that? Is a college education required for that?
No. So for a CCA, you need equivalent work experience. Have at least 2 years of experience with a bachelor's degree of science or ag, or have at least 3 years of experience with an associate's degree, or have at least 4 years of experience with no degree, is the CCA requirements. And I actually do have my bachelor, or I've got an associate's degree. I just don't have a bachelor's degree. That's official, but I do have an associate's. And my biggest thing is I think, I'm 36. So when I graduated college high school was 2005. So in 2005, that's right before all of the big millennial crashes that we always complain about. Mm-hmm. So, I'm trying to figure out, super excited about not being in high school, right? And going to college, and I don't know what I want to do or what I want to be. So, I was like, I like cooking, and that seems like something that's relatively economically stable because people don't like to cook, and people always are going to eat. So I decided to go. I actually went to school 4 hours away. And I went down there for about a year and a half, and that's one of my associate's degrees. I actually have 2 associate's degrees. So that's I think it's in science, associates in science with a culinary arts minor or whatever. And then the other one's ag business that I transferred to after I worked with dad. So I didn't finish my bachelor's degrees. I should have been more specific on that. But entirely to me, both of the degrees were a complete waste of time and money. And I agree full-heartedly with what you're saying. Go get an internship, figure out what part, like if you know that you're passionate in ag, but need to figure out what sector in ag, do an internship. Everybody's always looking for interns. Do an internship 100%. And then you can kind of, one, it builds your resume. Two, it gives you valid work experience. Three, it helps with networking. Four, is a great opportunity to expand your knowledge and kind of overall understanding of the industry. I mean, I can't speak enough about internships. Like if you're questioning anything, go be an intern. Like it is 100% the easiest, best, and most affordable way to figure out where your niche is at in ag. And I've argued for a really long time that STEM, because there's tons of government programming for STEM, especially women in STEM. I think that we should change that acronym to STEAM and throw ag in there, because STEM is ag. Like you want to be an engineer, ag engineering, there's a ton of places that engineers can go in. Science, technology, mathematics, like that's all ag. So I think that we should advocate for STEM to be STEAM.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Absolutely. And there's this friend that I have, his name's Blake Nolan. He's in Central Illinois, and he has this company called Bird Dog Workforce, which I don't have any sponsorship, but maybe I should start getting paid sponsorship for this. But the thing that he has is called the Job Hopper, and it's for people in like agriculture jobs, like you said, lime spreaders, chemical applicators, anything that's like not just trucking, welders, stuff like that. That's like the trades. And what I think he does is really cool is he works with people to do a job hopper. So you have like, I don't remember how long of the program it is, but you get like, you pick a handful of jobs, like, and you taste test them. Oh, I'm going to go do application for a couple of weeks. I'm going to go do this for a couple of weeks. I'm going to go, be a mechanic on large equipment for a couple of weeks. Like you get to taste test it. And I wish that more people knew about that kind of thing, because I wish that I had done even more of it. Like I wish that people did more of that, because like you said, we kind of like spin our wheels doing stuff that we think we should be doing, because on paper, this is what looks right. This is what looks successful. This is what the industry or culture says that we should be doing. And that's why I'm such a big advocate on like the working genius of like, you're doing things because you're supposed to, not because you want to. So let's dig into this and figure out like what is fueling your fire. And now let's find you a job specifically within the ag industry, because that's where I specialize, and align it with that. Like, oh my gosh, it'd be so good. We went on a million different rabbit holes there. I'm so sorry about that.
Well, I'm like a squirrel individual, so like this is perfect for me. Like
listeners may need to like take this down to like half speed to keep up with what we got going on. Yeah, this is good stuff. Okay,
you guys are gonna need a notepad and bullet points.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so you've gone through a couple of programs. You've you're still kind of learning more about like what you want to do, but tell me a little bit more, like expand on that. Like, what are you doing today? Like what kinds of development do you experience today, either personally or professionally? So
personally, to be really brutally honest, I don't have time to do personal development. So I'm a mom, and I've got a husband that is super supportive, but he farms. And then our two kids are 6 and 9. And we actually, when we were really fortunate to not have to try hard to have either of our kids. So my husband, I told him, I was like, listen, if we don't get pregnant by March, we're gonna have to stop, and then we'll start again like trying again in like November, because it's just not going to work for our schedules for
Is
either
that
of
so
us to
ridiculous that
have
we have to
babies
do
any
that?
other time. So both of my kids, I have joked frequently that we go to we go to the Wisconsin Dells every year for vacation, and both of my kids' birthdays are 6 months after that vacation, or 9 months after that vacation, and they're 2 days apart. So November 25th and November 27th are my kids' birthdays.
This is the reality of being a mom slash wife in the ag industry. Like, we had to do the same thing. We had to be really strategic about when we got married. So we got married in January, and everyone's complaining. Everyone that wasn't like farmers, like my aunts and uncles and cousins, were all complaining. I'm like, listen, if I wanted my dad to walk me down the aisle, I had to do it when it snowed. Like, or let's hope to God the markets aren't great right now, so that way he wasn't trucking into the elevator. But yeah, those are real things.
We got married right during like the 4th of July weekend, because my family's from Ohio, so they've got to come out 14 hours. We were actually going to have it in the Dells, and then that we had a little bit too much fun planning our wedding venue, and then I found out a month later that I was pregnant with my daughter. So we were going to do it in August, and then we're like, I told Cody, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be like 7-8 months pregnant when we get married. So we changed the date and moved it out here. But yeah, my father-in-law, so we get pretty wrapped up with spring like right around now. Up here we do. In Ohio, it's kind of a hit and a miss between like wheat harvest and stuff like that, but that year it worked out okay for everybody to come out. But it's definitely like one of those things of where my father-in-law was like, well, I've got to spray this week, and I'm like, well, sorry. Like, you should be done. This isn't my fault. And realistically, don't come at me and pretend that you're mad that you don't have to help with stuff a week before the wedding. Don't lie to me. You're welcome for me giving you an excuse to not be here, Kim.
That's good. I think you're so right, though. I mean, I think a lot of people don't have time, or maybe don't make time for personal development because of life. And part of me understands, but then part of me also has a little bit of a broken heart about it, because it's one of those things, like, I don't remember when it was. I posted something a while back that's like, it's not a matter of we don't have time. It's just that was something that we didn't make a priority. And
yeah, you're not wrong.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I don't make the gym a priority, and I know, like, I got the consequence from it. So I hope that Amanda Nick doesn't listen to this episode. So she's a farm fit mama. She was on probably I don't even know, a couple episodes ago. Anyway, yeah, her and I talked about that, and I'm just like, it's just not been a priority. I would rather work on my mind than on my mama belly. But listen, like, that's just, I'm okay with it, because in this season of my life, like, listen, I'm 7 months postpartum. I'm not in a big hurry. Like, I don't care.
Oh yeah, take your
my
time.
husband
your
clearly
body's still
doesn't
recovering.
he clearly doesn't have a problem with the way I look, like,
Right.
So, it's one of those things, like, but I love self-development. And it's one of those things that my husband just like rolls his eyes at, because he's like, listen, I don't have time. I'm not a goal setter. I don't care if I develop. It's not something that I'm into. But the more I talk about it, the more he's like, oh, I can see, like, this is important. This is something I should pay attention to. But the point of me saying all this is that it's not right or wrong. It's just being okay with the season of life that you're in, and accepting it and owning it and being fine with it. And so, like, I always make sure I stress that, like, personal and professional development is important to me. It's literally what I do for a living, but it's not something that I press on people or I don't want them to feel full of shame or guilt or embarrassment or anything, because they're not doing it. And so I just want to, like, make sure that there's an asterisk on that. Like, there's nothing wrong with it at all. So I'm asking, but that doesn't mean I'm expecting you to do it. And I think that's what's so real about this. That's why I love hearing your perspective, because it's like, listen, like, I don't have time for it, and it's okay. Like, it's not the thing that I chose to put on the top of my priority list today.
I will say that I often think of this because my husband, every now and again, he'll be like, Ashley, you don't have a hobby. Like, what are you going to do one day when you're not working because you don't have a hobby? And I'm like, and he said that for years, right? And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but my work's my hobby. Like, I genuinely love what I do. And like when I talk to people that don't know anything about ag, I'm like, I'm like a doctor, but for crops. Like, people come to me to see what their crops need, and then I tell them what they need, kind of like a prescription, right? And I genuinely love it. And that's like kind of my hobby. And my husband's like, you're gonna annoy me for the rest of my life because you don't have a hobby. And he's really big into guns and like shooting and stuff like that. And so that's kind of like his hobby in tinkering with stuff. And he's not wrong. Like, I don't have a hobby, but I get worried about like people that are close to retirement because that's such a frequent thing. Like, we can't really, there's so many things in ag that overlap with like historically fun things to do. like summertime is a super fun time. Well, we can't go to the lake because we are in ag retail and somebody needs to spray the fields, so we're the ones that are doing that. I like fishing, but when am I going to fish? Like, and yes, in Minnesota we ice fish and it's a real hoot, but it's so hard to kind of find the time to like find that hobby. But I worry about people that are close to retirement because I'm like, they have lived, breathed, and worked ag retail. Like, I look at my dad and I'm like, I'm glad you like fishing because like I don't know what you're gonna do in a year and a half from now or 2 years when you retire. Like, you're just gonna be doing your thing. And like, I think that there's like a real depression thing that happens. Like, everything that you've done your entire life is gone. So I wish that we talked about this more. Like, we need to make time to find what we like maybe like I've thought a lot about how cool it would be here to have like a deep winter greenhouse, like to be able to do like nitpicky stuff like that in the winter or in early spring or late fall, to do different gardening type of things. So I mean, there's different, I don't know. Now I'm just kind of rambling, but I just think
I
that
think
it's
you're
important.
good. You're spot on because listen, a couple of years ago, I never would have thought that I would say the words personal and professional development as many times as I did. Like, there could be a game of like, okay, every time Kacee says let's take a shot, like we'd have nothing but drunk listeners. But I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be saying those words because I didn't understand what they were. But I think another word that you could say in my mind for personal development could be hobby. Like, you're doing something, it's something that you're not paid to do, and you're perfecting or you're learning more about it. Like, I would say like wine used to be a hobby of mine, not just drinking wine, but like viticulture. Like, I was fascinated with it. So obviously, and I think this stemmed from, visiting all the wineries in Southern Illinois, but like I was so fascinated about it. I'm like, how do you get the same grape to taste so many different ways? I was fascinated about like how the vines grew, what, how many years after they start growing, can you actually harvest a crop from them? Like, that I got really into. And I would say that was a hobby of mine, but that's also a personal and professional development in a way, because you're learning something, you're sharpening a skill, you're learning more knowledge about it. And that can help you, like, first of all, it could help you professionally because, you could make money and make a market out of selling wine, selling the grapes. Right. There's farming involved in that. But then also personally, like, I'm using that as a tool or a resource to unwind and relax and connect with family and bond around that thing. Like, it was something my husband and I would go on dates, and that helped me personally in my marriage. And like, so I use that example very loosely, clearly, but just like I'm saying, like there are hobbies, and that could be your personal development, because when I think about growing myself personally, it's getting in tune with what makes Kacee feel fulfilled and full of purpose and able to add value to other people. And, like, what am I doing to live a life more centered around the things that are important to me? So like personal development could be like, I am choosing to be intentional with my time so that way I can spend more time with my kids. I can focus on my mental and my physical health. I can do projects, that I have said I wanted to do. Like, those are things in my mind, personal development. I also talk a lot about like mindset shifts. Like, I am working on myself and like how I view certain things, how I go about certain things, how I choose to feel about certain things. Like, that's all personal development. And you could call that hobbies, you could call that self-awareness, you could call it so many other things. But again, like, I think people are detoured or put off by the word personal development because it sounds like a lot of work and it sounds kind of woo-woo and it sounds almost like, wait, I've got to like learn about myself. That sounds very
lame.
Yeah. I think that's why so many, like, I don't want to put words in my husband's mouth, but I'm assuming that's what he pictures when I say personal development. He's thinking everybody sit around in a circle and tell us how you feel.
Right.
Like, that's not what I mean.
Shit.
Yeah. He's like, I got time to do that. So, like that, I think you're right. But like, just wording it differently, it's like, but you do have a little bit of personal development. But again, that is going to fluctuate and intensify more depending on the season of life and the season of the year in agriculture. And so like, I don't do personal development year round. I do it, like you said, maybe only nights and weekends, maybe only in the summer, maybe only in the winter. And that is totally fine.
So I do want to touch a little bit, just because I think it's super important for anybody in ag retail specifically. Like, so it's a crazy concept to me because Cody and I have been married 10 years, and there hasn't been a time in his life that he's known me that I wasn't an agronomist and or going to school for agronomy. And he's a farmer and a son of a farmer. They had pigs. Like, he knows the business and knows the industry. And by God, every single season, spring and fall, it is nothing but a fight of like, how long are you going to be at work? When are you going to get home? Like, what is the plan for X, Y, and Z thing? And so what I do, and my mom or my dad does the same thing for his mom. It's such a weird, almost gender reversal type scenario. And my mother-in-law, I wouldn't be able to do my job without her. Like, she picks up the kids. The kids get dropped off at the bus at our house. They live like a whole eighth of a mile away from us. So she picks them up, and their food are fed, bathed, and put to bed by the time I get home. So she is amazing. But what I do is like 2-3 weeks before we get busy, I sit the kids down and my husband down, and I'm like, remember that we're gonna get into our busy season. So here's what that looks like. And I think it's like super hard for my husband because he's like, well, we're done harvesting. Why are you still at work until 10? And it's like, I have to constantly remind him, like, okay, just because you guys are done does not mean the rest of the county is done. And he's like, well, we're done tilling or we're done disking or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What gets put on before you disc, Cody? And he's like, well, fertilizer. And I'm like, who puts the fertilizer on? He's like, what? You guys. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So you got done yesterday. We have the whole, like, there's still people combining corn. Like, this process. And it's like this constant reminder almost. And it's getting better the longer we're married for than, the first couple of years. It was like, what are you doing? Like, this is like 14 plus hour work days from, maybe a Sunday off. Like in 2018, I think we worked 27 days straight, like just nonstop. It's ridiculous hours. So I think like communication and being open and honest and having realistic expectations of like, this is what the season's going to look like. And I have that conversation with my mother-in-law also. Like if I had to guess right now, we'll probably crank up for fertilizer sometime in September because we're super ahead of GDUs. Um, so I think it's really important to kind of keep that open communication and just set realistic expectations of this is what it's going to look like. And it's got to be ag retail. It's so demanding, but yet it's so rewarding at the same time. And you have to love it. And I can't stress that enough to everybody that might be listening to this. Like, it is not for everybody. And if you don't love it, don't go into it because there's zero need to be in it if you don't love it. There's find what you love. Find your purpose.
I think that's what separates the agriculture industry from probably almost every single other industry. I mean, I've only ever worked in ag, so I can't really speak to those other industries, but I just see how personally we take everything. And like you mentioned earlier, like you love what you do. It doesn't feel like work. When 14 hours have gone by, yeah, you might be a little tired and exhausted, but it was still rewarding and fulfilling. And you saw the impact of that hard work. And that's the important piece about agriculture. And the fact that you took the time to communicate with your husband and your kids, like just a reminder, even though it should be a parent, but I can't remember exactly how the quote goes, but something like the key to effective communication is to never assume that it's happened. Something like
Right.
that. And, like, I think that's so true. Like, we just assume our spouses, especially, and I say farm wives because they're typically the ones home and the husbands are typically the ones out. But I know from personal experience, like I was the one in agriculture working the long hours, planting plots, and my husband was the home with the kids. And, I had to tell him, like, we're not done with the plot. I just can't up and leave. Like, it's supposed to rain tonight. Like,
Right.
I have to get
Right.
this field done. And so, like, just remembering, like, this is a season, it will be over soon,
Right.
but this is what I do. This is how I earn an income. This is what I'm passionate about. And I just, like, we've got to continue to work together. And there are a lot of tools and resources out there that can help people communicate that in a way that's not defensive or, potentially putting someone in a resentful state. Like there are a lot of things that if anybody ever needs help in that area, feel free to message me, because it's just super important, especially within ag, because like we may just assume that they know that this is something that we care about and it's important to us and it's something we have to do. But you hear a lot about different farm wives or ag retail wives that like don't understand, well, why are you still putting on gas right now? Like it's 7:30 at night. Like, well, the field don't keep track of what time it is. Like they don't know the sun's setting. Like it's got to get done. What Mother Nature's not going to pause for anybody. And it's just being able to communicate that and saying like, listen, I know this is important. You're important as well. Absolutely. Like my family comes first, but like I have to do this. This is my job. And there are ways to prepare, set yourself up for a successful and effective communication when it comes to that. And that's something that I've had to do a lot of work on, both personally and professionally, and sharing that with my customers and saying like, listen, it's Saturday afternoon. Like I do have things I have to do. I cannot be on call for you. So I'm setting boundaries for my growers, but I'm also setting boundaries for my family and saying like, listen, I'm not going to be available to talk to you from this time to this time. I've got to get this work done. So let me be where my feet are so that way I can be where I am when I'm home.
Yep. And I think that that's so important with everything that we do in ag, because it's so easy to get kind of caught up in it, right? And caught up in the rush. And it's almost like we're all adrenaline junkies. And we live for kind of like that utter chaos of spring and fall. And it's hard to say no. Stop. No. I cannot. Like, I am at home with my children, absolutely not. And low key, I'm not gonna lie, I have most definitely on a Saturday went in and I will bring my kids with me. And you want me to come in when I'm not supposed to be here, that's fine, but my children are coming in with me, and you're gonna feel low key mad about it. And that's right, Cody's probably planting, and I'm like, yeah, like I was at home with my kids, like I can't leave them there. Like they,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, they're too young. Like I've got to bring them in. So
Yeah.
have fun.
Most companies in agriculture understand that and have empathy for it. But I'm still shocked that there are some that's like, wait, you can't just drop what you're doing. No, I cannot. And I think we're getting to the point because podcasts like this AgriMinds podcast and others are not afraid to talk about like, hey, like there is a balance here. There are boundaries. And I think more and more people are becoming aware that they can say no and that it's a complete sentence and that they don't have to explain anything. And
Right.
I'm not saying be a jerk and like put your, people in a bind. What I am saying though is set the tone for it. Know what's important to you and what's not important to you. And know that there may be a process of transitioning from one version to the next version. Like it's not just going to change overnight and you're not going to just expect like, oh, manager, I all of a sudden can't do this anymore. Like, it may be a process
Right.
of these are things that I'm learning about myself. I'm developing in these areas. I'm evolving in these areas, and I'm becoming more aware of what matters more to me when. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's just important to understand what works for you and do the work to know like, okay, I do want to make sure that those that are important to me, those people around me that I care about, see that I'm making an effort for them, but also staying true to who I am as a professional at the same time.
And I think it's important to have the communication, not just with your family, but with your work and your boss also. Like, I've been very fortunate with the company here. Cottonwood has been amazing and they've treated me awesome. Like there's been times that I've been in the payloader loading the fertilizer plant and I'll get a call from daycare and one of the kids puked. And I will leave everything running and run in and be like, hey, I gotta go. Like last year, my son broke his toe in the middle of spring. And I was like, I showed Blake a picture and he was like, what, get out of here. Like, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've been really supportive and understanding about it. But I think as the generational shift happens in ag, there's such a different mentality than my dad had in ag. So, my mom was the main caretaker, and that's not the case now. Like I talk about that a lot in the business meetings that I'm in. I just had the opportunity a year ago to go down to Nashville with CHS and talk in a couple of group discussions with them. And I said, hey guys, listen, like part of the staff shortage, let's just be honest and real, is that we're not a family friendly business. 98% of the time, we're not. And my family is going to be a case in point of that. I'm going to give you a perspective as a female in the industry and say that if I couldn't do my job without my husband being one of the main caretakers of my children. And so it's not necessarily roles have reversed or anything like that, but it's more equal than it has been in the past. And as an industry as a whole, ag needs to recognize that. Women are working more and men are doing more of the house stuff and caretaking and being more involved and less of 100% primary breadwinners. And I'm not saying that that's always the case because it's not, but it's happening a lot more frequently where the husbands are a lot more involved, or in divorce situations, they might have their kids 100% of the time for a week. It's very different than it was even 25, 30 years ago. And I look at my dad's life and I'm like, it makes me sad for the industry that we're not recognizing that in my mind fast enough. And I think that's where we're losing people, is because they're like, well, why would I work here when I can get paid the same and have a 9 to 5 job?
Mm. I think you're right. It's not going at a pace that I think would be fast enough, but it is happening. Like I will say,
Yes.
when I worked for Bayer, like they were more than accommodating for me. Like I had been very blessed to be able to work from home, like have a home office, and then I would go out to my dealers and I would go out to my growers. And like my son, had an allergic reaction at school at 11 o'clock, 11:30 in the morning, right as they went to lunch. And I had to be home the rest of the day with him. And so like they're very accommodating. And now being a full-time entrepreneur, I don't necessarily have the restrictions, but there are days where I have a meeting or have I'm guest speaking out of town or something, and my husband is the main caretaker. Absolutely. And I remember, last spring when I was still working full time, and it was plot season, and my son had a doctor's appointment, and my husband took him to the doctor. And he came back home and he's like, I don't know why, but everyone was looking at me so strange. And I finally asked, like, is there like what is going on? And they're like, we just don't see very many dads bring their kids to the
Right.
doctor. And it was just super shocking. Like there wasn't anything wrong with the kid. He was just like having his normal checkup or whatever. But, like it was just strange to them. Like all the female nurses were like, we don't see dads in here. So like, it was just strange. And my husband felt a little odd because he's the only female or the only male with a room full of other moms and their 6 kids. And but then at the same time he's like, man, that makes me feel so good to know like I'm doing something right, like I'm a good dad. It gave him a sense of pride to know like, wow, I feel like I've stepped up in a way that most dads don't. And that makes me feel really awesome. Like he's setting an example for our son to know like both parents are an equal player in this game. Like it's not mom's 80% and dad's 20 like I feel like was growing up. Like my mom was the main caregiver as well. I would have never imagined my dad taking me to the doctor. My dad would have been like, reschedule that till mom's back. And like,
my dad would have been like, you got this, right?
Yeah. Several times growing up, like my mom made things happen and like would always like took care. I was one of 4 daughters. And so, she was the caregiver. But when my mom would go out of town to like visit my grandma who lived in Louisiana, she'd be gone for like, 4 or 5 days, which felt like forever. Especially for my dad, who is now raising 4 kids as a solo parent for a week. Like we would have these things called mom's away steaks, and he would grill steaks out on the grill. And we always joked because there was like 4 times that we had mom's away steaks growing up, but they were amazing. And so like we always joked because mom always said like, they sound really great, but I will never know because she was clearly gone. But like that's the only thing that my dad would cook us because he knew how to grill steaks. But it's just so funny to think about like how life looked like growing up and the generations before us, and how you're absolutely right. Like things are changing. The dynamic of the different genders being played out in ag retail and different typical roles that you would imagine maybe a different person filling that. It's just so interesting to hear. And I think that is a huge portion of our professional development, having the confidence and saying, you know what, I can show up, I can do this role that's typically been done by somebody that doesn't look like me, talk like me, act like me, or is the same age as me. And, that's the big piece of professional development, as well as understanding that. And, it's just a mindset, and it's kind of being open to doing things a little bit differently. And my professional development has 100% stemmed around that, because I thought this was the way things should have always been. And as I'm developing professionally, I'm realizing, oh, we can do things a little differently now. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just different. And so there are kinks to be worked out and challenges that we're going to have to overcome, but it's doable. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time to share your perspective and your journey, even though like it is a little non-traditional compared to what we think it should be or assume. And so again, just thank you for taking the time to be open and transparent on that.
I appreciate it. You know, the other thing that I think is important, there are going to be some people that just don't like working with you, and that's inevitable. So if it's because I'm a female, I personally choose not to see that. I don't see it as it's because I'm a female. I see it as it's a personality indifference. Because everybody has those people that they just do not want to work with, regardless of what your sex is. That's just part of being in working with other people. Like, you're going to have personality conflicts. So I think a lot of it is just a mindset and how you want to look at it. So I would challenge anybody in ag, what are things that I can control in this? And how can I make the business and industry better every chance I can? And kind of lose that stigmatism behind, oh, you know, she's just a young girl or whatever. You know, like, to me, there's so much more than that. And I personally have not had a lot of issues as a female in ag. I know a couple of other ones that have, but again, I think it's a difference of setting up that boundary and saying, this will not be tolerated. This is my line and it will not be crossed. And I would challenge realistically anybody to do that. Like, that's, in my mind, that's not just gender-based. That is just healthy boundaries.
Mhm.
Like, this is where my boundary is and you're not going to cross it. And I think that that's important. And I think that we should talk about it, because we don't talk about it typically, because it's just not normally socially acceptable to talk about, but it's there, and it's something that inevitably you're going to deal with. But I would challenge everybody to kind of have the correct mindset. And you do have control over that. You have control over your emotions and how you react to things, and where that boundary is for you. And just don't let people cross it. Say, no, that will not be tolerated.
In a role that I previously had, they wanted to start having a weekly meeting at 7:30 in the morning. And one of the other guys proposed, actually, let's do 7, so that way we can just get it out of the way and start our day. And I'm like, no, that, first of all, 7 a.m. is when my kids are getting up and we're getting ready to leave the house. 7:30 is about when I'm dropping them off or in the midst of that. First of all, like, our day should start at 8. And like, I understand, like, in ag retail specifically, like, okay, we got to get out, like, the ground may still be hard by then. It's not super mushy if we're
Right.
trying to apply something. Like, I get it, but like, my boundary is no. And I told you before I came to this job that work-life balance was a priority of mine. And so, like, even not as a female, as a mom, but just as a parent, that's a big inconvenience.
Right.
That, and I'm not willing to waver. And the majority of the people on that team were, 50, 60 years old. So they hadn't thought about that before. And one of the men on the team also said, like, yeah, I'm in charge of dropping my kids off at that time too. That's not going to work. Like, we do have to set these boundaries, but we also need to, like, stand our ground in a way. Like, we can't always ask permission from HR to stand up for ourselves or say, like, these are boundaries
Right.
I'm willing to set, and I've got to stick to them and make a point. And I think that's part of professional development as well, of like, I need to stand my ground, but I have to do it with tact, but I have to also make my point. And so I have to speak the language of the person that is crossing the line or whatever. But those are things that people don't want to talk about either, like, that we do have to deal with in ag. Like, we have to get the job done. But like, I always joke, like, last year on TikTok, I've made a million videos on TikTok. Ag coach Kacee, in case you're curious and want to follow me. I've got a billion videos on there that most of them are personal professional development based. And I had one video on there when I was harvesting a cornfield with my dad, and I had to go to the bathroom. And so I, like, showed the video of like, well, if you're a woman driving the auger cart, you turn your tractor wheel just at the right angle, there's your spot. That thing went freaking viral. And I'm like, here I am trying to talk about all these really professional videos. And I'm like, and then the one video about me peeing in a cornfield goes nuts. I'm like, go figure. So, I mean, those are real things that in the workplace, which the cornfield was my workplace at the time, that nobody wants to talk about. And it just so happens to be that, you know, the female agronomist podcast episode is the one where we get into those types of things. I should probably put a disclaimer in the notes before anybody.
You should. I will add to it to make sure that there's at least blue shop towels and or toilet paper in a pickup before you leave.
It's a necessity. Like, I think women just know, like, these are things that are expected. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Oh man. Well, thank you so much again for the laughs and the insights and the perspective. I mean, you've done a fantastic job today. And thank you so much for being on the AgriMinds podcast.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.